If it has a payoff that warrants the time difference, then great. But it all comes down to payoffs, and that's what readers want. They're looking for that payoff. If
Would
you're
have been
going to annoy me
amazing.
with this,
It would
what do
have
I
been
do?
amazing if she swallowed the raindrop and then we became the girl.
Depends on what they're doing, but yeah.
That would have been so cool. Would have been
Or if
like,
we'd stayed the raindrop, but we just took control of the girl. And we don't know her name because we're a parasite inside of controlling her
go
brain.
on.
Releasing your inner dragon. Okay, so we're going to destroy another human being's soul. No, we're gonna just talk about the writing. We're gonna edit another piece. Another brave soul has sent us a piece for critiquing, just because this is top of mind, because I literally said it before I hit the record button. Remember, I get how terrifying it is to let people read your work. I get what it feels like, when you send us something and we're looking at it and we're going, okay, well, this line is a little telly, or this is what we feel you did wrong, or whatever, you author intrude or whatever. What you hear is this part of your soul sucks and you're a bad human being because of this. I get it. But a part of growing as a writer is getting over that. I say all the time in the writer's room, you do not get to decide if you've written something good. That is not in your wheelhouse. You do not have that authority. You're not even a part of that equation of whether you wrote something well or not. Only the reader, the term art is in the eye of the beholder. You are not the beholder, you're the creator. So when we're editing this stuff, just remember, all we're doing is showing you ways to make the widget, the product for consumption, better so that more people want to consume it. It's a business. It is not a personal thing. It is not, and I know that it's hard. It's so hard to separate your love and feelings and all of that from this creation, this baby, this thing that you've done. But that is important as a professional writer, because I promise you, if you publish something on Amazon, there ain't a single reviewer out there who gives a crap about your feelings. Like, they're just going to destroy you. And they're going to, and matter of fact, some of them out there are going to enjoy destroying you. They have fun doing it. And those reviews are forever. They don't come down. You can't get them taken down. You can't get them deleted. It doesn't matter what they say. Amazon is going to leave them up there in perpetuity. So by having your stuff critiqued in a writer's group or sending it to us and letting us do it, this is way better than having a 1-star review that says, I'm only giving this a 1-star because I have to give it to tell you how awful it is. Otherwise, I would have given it a 0-star. Like, I don't want a review like that. That is painful to read. And so that's what these critiques are. They're here just to point things out, to let you see ways of making a better widget that more people are going to want to consume. That's it. That's all we're doing here.
Indeed. Okay. I mean, all of those things are true. And just like,
Yeah. Like I said, we just had this, we were having a discussion with some of the people that are watching. Oh, and if you want to watch live, everybody is invited to join us while we're recording this. We do it on Pacific time, West Coast America. It's we start at 9:30 in the morning. Finland, we start at
7:30 in the evening.
Okay, 7:30 in the evening on a Thursday.
Yeah.
All you got to do is go over to writersroom.us and just join the free area. You don't have to pay anything. Join the free area. And then every week, if you want, you can join us and chat between things. You can send comments while we're doing the podcast so that you can be a part of the discussion. So yeah, join the writers room.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't mean to sound dismissive of everything you said. Everything you said is very valid. You do have to learn to take that criticism.
I like
Yeah.
Indeed was pretty much all I left you room for. I didn't leave room for adding anything else. So that's why I was laughing. I wasn't laughing at you're belittling me. I was laughing at, wow, I left you nothing. I ate all of it. I took the pie and I just took one piece. I only took one piece. It was just the whole piece, the whole pie. And I ate it all. I love
Okay.
this. I love this art up here. That is cool.
Yeah, it was actually, so the layout might seem a little weird, and that is because it was sent to us as a PDF, so
Yeah.
it's been converted into Word for editing. So disregard the layout for the purpose of critiquing it, but it was really well laid out. Like it, this T and the whole, like the typesetting is actually quite good. Like, yeah.
The funny thing is
Okay.
actually, I don't typeset in Word, but I
Mm,
do still, I'm very particular at how my Word documents look. So I don't have
yeah.
drop caps like the big T, but I
Mm.
absolutely do have chapter headers and I have artwork in it. And I don't know, it just makes me feel good. I don't, when I typeset, I do it again in the typesetting program, but I
Mm.
still want my Word document to look decent. So as interior art comes in, I'll add it to the Word document.
So
It,
I do typeset in Word, and I typeset as I go.
yeah,
So my chapters are finalized as I go with them and
Word is
typesetting.
not a typesetting program. I
We can
refuse.
agree to disagree. Um, so this is chapter 1, and it is titled The Flood and the Forge. The sky wept. Its tears smothered the mountainside, each alike in shape and size, touch and tempo, save one. One drop held iron in its heart. It had last known the warmth of a shattered palm. Each time the girl shoved her fingers back into their berths, the drop's skin brimmed over the cuff of her gauntlet. Her blood steamed in the rays of a sunset spent. Quick, uneven steps rattled the leather plates, once worn like skin. With every footfall, the greaves unwound from her shins. And grave though her wound, she ran. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Um, I think it is a touch omniscient, which is fine. It is really it is well written.
So
Um,
yes, but I do want to push back on one thing.
yeah.
You have sacrificed the reader being able to see exactly what's going on
Mm,
for flowery prose. And I'm
yeah.
all for flowery prose, but when all I get is flowery prose, me personally as a reader, I'm not connected to it. And
Mm.
so that's my problem. It is beautifully written. No negative about that. But like when we got like with every footfall, or you know,
I was on board. I was on board until the end of It At Last, Knowing the Warmth of the Shattered Palm. And then when I read each time the girl shoved her fingers back into their berths, I was like, how do fingers have berths? What is she wearing? Like, how is she?
but it's also where did she even come from?
Yeah.
What am I on? I mean, I was in the sky falling over a mountainside, and that was beautiful. I love this opening line. These opening two lines are literally like the one drop. They
Mm,
saved one. One drop held iron in its heart. Like that was a huge hook for me. But then
mm.
we start to develop what that is, what that means. So we have it had last known the warmth of a shattered palm. I don't really get the imagery there. I don't know what I'm supposed to be
So,
connected there. And then we're instantly just in this girl.
yeah.
So where did this beautiful imagery of this one raindrop go? So again, I don't know what she's running on. Like we have something about, oh, quick uneven steps rattled the leather plates once worn like skin. So is this on the ground? Like it's beautiful, but I don't know what to paint in
I,
my
I,
mind.
yeah. So I think it's on the girl. I think the girl is wearing the leather plates because with every footfall, the greaves unwound from her shins.
Again, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have sacrificed clarity
Mm,
for pretty prose. Now,
yeah.
some people, that's what they want to write. I'm not dogging this. I'm not,
Yeah.
this is not, because I don't write pretty prose
Mm.
and I do it on purpose. Matter of fact, one of my professional reviewers wrote something. And when I read it, I went, hey, finally, someone gets me. And then I read it again. I was like, or are they insulting me?
Mm.
And then about 6 months later, I met this guy at a convention and I asked him, were you insulting me with that line in your review? Because it was a 5-star review. Or were you complimenting me? Because I took it as a compliment. And he goes, oh, no, I was insulting you. And the line was, while Drake is an incredibly immersive writer, I never found myself marveling over his use of prose. And so when I met him, he said, yeah, you are such a strong writer. I think you can write beautifully as well as vividly. And I was like, I don't know if that's even possible. Because the problem is when you write vivid, it's very much the reason why people like how I write, the people that like how I write, they constantly know where they're at. They constantly can see everything. They constantly can feel everything. They constantly know what they're supposed to be feeling as this story is rolling on, which means I stay away from pretty prose on purpose. Because to me, pretty prose is the same thing. If somebody stops and goes, wow, look at that line. Look at how he wrote that line. You're not watching the movie in your head anymore. It's just like if you read a line, you're like, I have no idea what this person is saying. Like, it's not even English. Is that it's punctuation even supposed to go there? Like, well, like when fingers turned into ngers,
Yeah. When
like you're
when
like,
so that threw me.
right.
Each
But
time
that's
the
because
girl shoved her fingers back into their berths,
no,
because
I'm saying in the
berths,
Word document, it dropped the fee of
yeah,
that
yeah,
word and you hit it and you were like, that's not a word,
yeah.
And so,
But even in the PDF, each time, like
right, right,
it,
right.
yeah,
But what the birth is the birth is the fingers of the glove
yeah. So
because
I get what he's saying now that I've analyzed it, but it took me a
exactly
while to parse what's going on here.
that's my point.
Yeah.
My point is that all of this is beautiful, well written,
Mm,
absolutely pretty prose as you can get. But basically, you're describing that there's rain that is dripping inside of the girl's gloves.
yeah.
Like that's what's going on here. But you
Yeah.
have to actually analyze it, which means now I'm not painting a movie in my head. And then now, again, I'm not knocking this. If this is the type of writing you're going for, God bless you. That is a valid writing style.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing is that a lot of readers today aren't going to put that kind of effort. You're writing for a smaller niche of
Mm,
readers than the mass market. Mass market is who I write for. I want to get as many people reading my stuff as I possibly can. Not every writer wants that. And so I'm not saying change this. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying anything. I'm just pointing out that while, yes, it is wonderfully written and beautifully, beautifully written prose, you're sacrificing the reader's ability to just follow along and see
yeah.
something painted in their brain.
And
That's
I
all I'm
I
saying.
I do have a problem with "and grave though her wound she ran."
Hmm?
I feel like grammatically there is something actually wrong with that sentence. I'm not entirely sure what.
It's missing the was.
Yeah. "And grave though her wound was." Yes.
Yeah.
It feels off without that was. It
And
really
a
does.
lot of pretty prose will go down that.
Yeah.
So, like this author may actually go, no, 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 no. I don't want the was there. I'm doing that on purpose because, again, it adds a lyrical tone to it. But again, this is just a different of styles.
Mm,
The reason why I don't go down the lyrical path, the poetic path, because that's what poetry, I mean, how many times have you read a poem and it has some weird sentence that
yeah.
isn't exactly grammatically correct?
Yeah, of course.
But it hits the feeling of what the
Yeah.
author is trying to do. So again, it's not that we can go, oh, this is wrong, this is a typo, you should have put a was there. I
Mm,
guarantee you the writer did this on purpose.
okay.
But they're sacrificing, again, you're sacrificing the reader's ability to just fall into the story with the fact that you're writing in this very poetic, very pretty prose way. There is
Yeah.
absolutely a market for this, 100%. So I'm not, again, I'm
Yeah.
walking a tightrope here because I'm not trying to dog
Yeah.
this writer in any way, shape, or form. But from a business standpoint, there's going to be a lot of people because most books are bought on Look Inside or recommendations. So they're going to look inside of this. There's going to be a lot of readers who do not like pretty prose because they can't just fall into the story, and they're
So
going to move on.
I think you could do the pretty prose if you were just a little bit more clear.
Right. 100%.
Right? Each time the girl shoved her fingers back into the glove, or in, like, just make it a little bit more clear.
Yep. Because that opening line, although I hate that we have lost, I hate that we've lost the little drop. Because I really, like, I can't say enough how much I love This Guy Wept.
Yeah.
Now I think it should be one paragraph, and I actually think that the paragraph break should be between palm and each. So The Sky Wept, its tears smothered on the outside, all the way down to Shattered Palm. I feel like that's all one paragraph, and then the new paragraph is each time.
Yeah.
Because now we're in, at least we've lost now. If we bring in the droplet, like the droplet happens to be, you know, somewhere on this gauntlet or something like that. And I think that's what we're getting at with the
It was on her palm. She forced her hand in, and then it got tossed outside. That's the image that I'm assuming is being gone towards.
Maybe.
Here.
But again, we've lost it. We've lost the connection to the drop. And so now we're floating, and as a reader, I don't know who I am, what I'm supposed to. And again, that's why I say, in one of the steps of scene setting, or one of the steps of writing a scene, is scene setting, which means I need to know whose head I'm in. I need to know what's around me. I need to be able to put myself somewhere as quickly as possible. And you did that with the drop of rain. I just said I was a drop of rain, like, which is awesome. And I don't mind knowing that that's not actually the character of the story. I mean, obviously, we're not going to follow a drop of water through a fantasy story. That would be weird. I guess you could do it, but I doubt we do that. But anyway, so you're just
so I think if you maybe just made that, like, as you say, made that one paragraph, and then just make it a little bit more clear what is going on with the drop of rain, and have it like, and show the girl a little bit more completely with a bit more clarity. Because, like, I will tolerate pretty prose. I guess, like, I will actually read, you know, Lord of the Rings and so on. Like, I will tolerate the kind of pretty prose more than you will.
Prose.
But I got confused here.
Right. Yeah. And again, the way I want to kind of amend your statement is doing that will increase the amount of people who want to read it.
Yeah.
It's not that we're saying that this is wrong. It's just that on the scope of things, it depends on where you want to be as a writer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you make it a little bit more clear, a little easier to pass the image, you're going to get more buy-in.
Yes.
From a larger audience of reader.
Yes. And the hardest thing to do is to is to make a fan.
Yeah.
Which means they think.
So, rocks and roots ushered her downhill, where the brush gave way to wheat and barley and pockets of saplings. Thick rain pummeled the timber about her. She let the fog draw her into the forest depths, to the forge wagon waiting just as her teacher had promised. Mareless, it moped beneath a frame of oaken poles and it moped beneath a frame of oaken poles and tarp.
Yeah, I mean,
is that how you spell?
Like, stop here. That's such a beautiful line.
Yeah.
Mareless, it moped between a frame of oaken poles and tarp. Like, the wagon, there's no horses.
Yes.
And it moped beneath a frame of oaken poles and tarp. Just paint this picture of this just wet, drenched, covered wagon that's sagging and all of that. Like, it's a beautiful image, beautiful line.
There's a lot of, like, the root rocks and roots was also reasonable. Like, I had an idea of at least the environment she's running through.
Right.
So yeah, little bit more of that clarity.
Right. This is the point. When you start, you can write really pretty prose and still paint a picture for your reader to be grounded inside of.
Yeah. The chatter of rain upon the canvas beckoned, while her heart begged both legs to crumple and curl like a winded hawk. But she was here for him, for the brass robot lurking just beyond the fire's coral glow. So all those songs were true. Okay, I'm gonna call a moment of foulness here. I don't know who thinks this. And I'll tell you why I don't know who thinks this. I've been a raindrop, and I haven't actually been the girl. I don't feel like I've been the girl.
So you have, once it gets to Rocks and Roots ushered her downhill, and then especially in the she let the fog draw her into the forest
Yeah.
pass. So you have, but yeah, it is kind of, I'm not denying you.
Yeah.
You know, I
It to me this for a moment I was like, is this the girl's internal thought? Like, because yeah. Also, I am not completely fond of this sentence in a pretty prose sense. Okay,
I don't even, I have no idea what that looks like.
so I understand what it looks like, but I don't like it because we've already described the wagon. Now we're saying the chatter of rain upon the canvas beckoned, as in it's calling her in. Okay, but her heart is begging her legs to crumple and curl like a winded hawk because she's exhausted. It's muscle burn.
Right.
Okay, I got that. The thing is, I don't like the sentence because we've already got the wagon described up at the top. To now repeat the canvas feels like overwriting.
I can see that.
I would actually perhaps just cut this whole section and be like, her heart begged both legs to crumple and curl like a winded hawk.
See, for me, the imagery that gets thrown for me is the end curl.
Mm.
Um,
I
I
also don't like the winded hawk here, to be honest, because like a winded hawk is not going to crumple and curl. It's going to drop like a stone. Like,
so yeah, I mean, there's an argument for that, but the legs don't curl. So
mm,
that's what threw me out with. That's why I say I don't know how to paint that because I don't know how to paint legs curling
mm,
as opposed to crumpling.
yeah. But yeah,
Crumple is
that
fine.
this sentence is not the sentence I think can do with some thought.
But again, this is where if every single thing is pretty prose, then every line means that the reader has to work. They're
Yeah.
having to literally put effort in to
Mm.
figuring out every single moment that they're reading.
I mean, if that line was smoother, I wouldn't need to, you know what I mean? Like you can make this work,
Right.
but you're going to need to put every single line needs to be not only pretty, but also clear.
Right. That's the balance that you need to
Yeah.
strike, in my opinion, if you're going to
Yeah.
go with a more pretty prose.
Yeah.
But then you do something like the two sentences in the row in the last of this page. You've already pointed out the inner monologue kind of comes out of nowhere, and we don't really know 100% if we're grounded in it. But
Yeah.
then you also throw in, like, we feel like we're in a fantasy world, and you're going to drop in the brass robot lurking just behind the fire's coral glow. First of all, where'd the fire come from? I don't remember a fire being brought in. Is that just me, or did that just come out of
No,
nowhere?
no, the fire came out of nowhere.
Okay.
I'm okay
And
with the brass robot though, because this could be a sci-fi. Like the cover would have told us that, or the back, or whatever, you know.
okay, so you don't know the genre?
No, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. All right. Then yeah. Because for me, I'm definitely in fantasy, and then you throw this brass robot without explaining anything.
Yeah.
So that's why it hurt me. But I'm glad to know that I didn't miss
No, the
fire.
fire is the first time, because I mean it's raining. We've got the moping wagon. Where's the fire?
Right.
Yeah. The bards did the ancient centaur little justice. Pipes indeed made up his bones and wires, his sinews. Yet the girl found herself fixated instead upon the bulky rock that pulsed amber where a man's eyes would roost. She had caught him deep in a strange dance before his forge. Since no legs stood beneath him, one arm bore his weight while the other raised a hammer into the tempest. Okay.
So another reason why you feel this is more omniscient, and I do not understand why so many writers love doing this. If you're trying to write in limited, then you're not the one telling the story. And again, I don't think this is limited. I actually think
No.
this is the way. So I'm just pointing this out, not necessarily to change this, but just to show other listeners. If you're trying to write in limited, it means the character is the narrator. And you know the one thing the character probably knows? Their freaking name.
Yeah.
And so by using,
And I'm sorry, but with the best will in the world, in Omniscient, you know what the one thing is that the Omniscient narrator knows? The character's freaking
character's
name.
freaking name,
There is no excuse for doing this unless the character doesn't know their name.
or there's a reason. I mean, whatever the reason is. So like I have that one chapter in Genesis that starts off kind of like this. And it has weird lines like he felt his body, lean out the window and stuff like this. And you're like, wait a minute, what? But then you find
100%.
out that he's in a dream,
Yeah, but
a magical
that's
kind of thing.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like unless the character doesn't know who
Right,
they are or where they are for some reason, like they are literally disconnected, like that is
right,
part of the whole shtick going
right,
on here.
right.
There is no reason to hide the name from the narrator
No,
or from the reader. None. None.
unless there's a reason. But if there isn't a
Yeah.
reason, so far there hasn't been,
Yeah.
then it's just annoying.
Yeah. Um, okay.
If there's no payoff, then you've literally just annoyed someone for no reason.
Yeah.
Like you can annoy a reader and then they get to a certain point and they're like, that is so cool. I was annoyed and now I feel cool because I got paid off for my
Yes.
annoyance. But if it's
Yeah.
just annoyance and like on the next page it says Susan, thought about approaching the robot but decided not to. And it's like, well, then there's
Or even worse, when they're like, they wait until the character has to say their name or somebody else has to say their name, and then they start referring to the character by name. And I'm like, what do you
there's no
think
payoff.
this is?
Right.
Like, this is not payoff.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so just on that note, okay, so I'm not fond of the bards. Did the ancient centaur little justice? It feels like a line that is there just to give me the name
What
of
was
the
that?
brass robe. This line, the bards did the ancient centaur little justice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it because I feel like it is a sentence that exists only to give me that word,
Right.
centaur.
And this is a great example of, scroll up just a little bit so we see that last line.
Yeah.
This is a great example of, if there's no reason to hide it, it might be better for your reader. So like, but she was here for him, for the brass centaur lurking just beyond the fire's coral glow. The bards did the ancient robot little justice. So it's normally, in my opinion, I try to give the name of something before I give the definition of it. It just kind of depends. I mean, if it's this weird, like if I don't know what a centaur is, and so I might describe it. So I might go, for the brass centaur, lurking beyond the fire's coral glow, and then maybe up there I give the description of it having no legs and holding itself up or whatever. So I'm describing it, and then down below I might say something like, the bard did the ancient robot little justice. So it's the
I
order.
would cut this line. Like this kind of writing, in my opinion, benefits from a more minimalist approach.
Yeah.
This line adds nothing.
I think it would add something to get in the robot side of it, but not the name.
Maybe. But yeah, the other thing is I don't like the word indeed in pipes indeed, because indeed is a implication of in place of, and it's not in place. Nobody's saying that pipes don't make up his bones. Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
So
the writer's trying to refer back to the fact that the Tales had said that it was made up of pipes, and now we're saying yes, indeed they do. But you're right, since I mean we have the inner monologue thought, but I think that's what the writer's trying to point back to, is the inner monologue dropping the fact that there is songs about this thing, and so, but there is other clearer ways to say that as well. And if we're gonna do this, I it's very omniscient. And again, if this is written omniscient, which I kind of feel like it is,
yeah.
then this isn't bad. But if we were going to go for a more limited way, then on the second line, the found herself is, again, that's a third party narrator would be something to say instead if we wanted to be more limited, yet the girl fixated instead upon the bulky rock,
Yeah.
it's more immediate, it's more in the moment, it's more what the narrator is going to be doing.
Even if this is omniscient, I would still cat out found herself.
It is overwriting, but I'm just saying
Because
that
it's overwritten.
that
Yeah.
definitely adds to the omniscient
Mm.
aspect of the writing.
Yeah. But omniscient or limited, I would cut that because I think it will read better, even in the style. So let's just read it like this. Pipes made up his bones and wires, his sinews. Yet the girl fixated upon the bulky rock that pulsed amber where
Yep.
a man's eyes would roost. And that just cuts out the extraneous words of indeed found herself and instead.
Yes.
And it makes the sentence is the same, but it makes the sentence, in my opinion, it strengthens the sentence
Yep.
overall in its structure while retaining the poetic prose.
Yeah, and a stronger way to tie it back to the songs, you
Mm.
could literally go, and like the tale said, pipes made up its bones. If we needed to. I'm not even saying we need to do that, but I'm saying I think that is a little.
That's actually why that bard line bugs me, because she talks about the tales, then she says they did it little justice, then she says that they did that, but in fact, he does have pipes. Like, make up your mind. Well, they don't. I really honestly don't know if they are uh male or female, but yeah. So yeah,
Right.
like I have a little bit of like a flip flop there between which way it goes. So I think that's why this line bugs me. This is fine. Within the style. Mid-swing, his head ratcheted toward her. A whisker from its prey, the arm shuttered still. I don't know what that means.
I think they're trying to say that the girl is no, it was hammering something. So I guess again, this is where using flowery words.
Yeah. No, this sentence is very unclear. Like
Well,
I actually
I think
can't parse out what it means.
I think that it's the hammer almost hit the anvil, and the anvil would be the prey of the hammer. But again, when you get really flowery and use the word
Mm,
prey, that's a word that's going to bring in the image of, you know, predator prey,
yeah.
and it's not exactly hammer anvil.
Yeah.
So that's just, I think that's because I don't think he swung the hammer at the girl.
No.
So I think, and again, this is
A
where
vision or a visitor. Yeah, that is very unclear. So
what I
I
was
would,
going to say is this
if
is
you're
why.
looking for a little bit more clarity, because I mean you did send this in to be critique. If you're looking for a little bit more clarity, fix that line.
Right.
Make that more clear.
And again, this is why I am not a person who tries to write flowery prose, because of the fact that I want to paint a picture for my reader. I don't want to just paint pretty prose. I mean,
Yeah.
last story, we were at a Barnes and Nobles. This is 5 or 6 years ago, but my wife brought me the Pulitzer Prize winning book that year. And she's like, you got to read the back blurb of this. And so I turned it around and it said, and I'm not even kidding, this is the sales pitch. This is the sales pitch that gets you to want to buy the book. It said, you will not read this book because of the dynamic characters, the interesting story, or the amazing plot, because it has none of those. You will read it simply for the beauty of the sentences that are written. And I was like, no, 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 I won't. Anyway, I'm just,
Yeah.
not that this is wrong. Again, this is a
Yeah.
writing style. And, if this is what you do, I'm just definitely not the person to, and I
Yeah.
don't think you are either, to, to critique this if this is the way you want to write, because we're going to push against this because it's very antithetical to how we feel stories, our writing style and our type of storytelling.
So I'll tolerate a lot more pretty prose as long as I can get enough of an image to make
Right.
sense.
Right.
Like this sentence lost me.
Right.
Okay. So
Which is funny because it didn't lose me.
it lost me. A vision or a visitor? His words buzzed like tiny pits of wood shaken in a tin jar. The breath rushing through her forbade any answer. You seem real enough. A visitor, then. But I received no visitors this late. The robot twitched back to his forge, where a colossal maul's visage smouldered up an iron altar. He heaved his hammer high in the same geometry as before. The sequence rippled across a constellation of hoses and hinges, rubbed to a raw chrome. Okay. Again,
Again,
yeah,
it's just a lot of sacrificing clarity for prettiness.
yeah.
Although I will say, scroll up just one line. Frickin' love a vision or a visitor. His words buzzed like, and I don't think it needs a comma. His words buzzed like pits, like tiny pits of wood shaken in a tin jar. I think the comma's wrong.
Yeah.
And then I do also love the brush rushing through her forbade any answer. Like that,
Yeah.
that is the definition, in my opinion, of pretty prose that also paints a
A
perfect
clear
image.
picture. Yeah.
Like those two lines, fantastic in every way. They
Yeah.
are very well written, very pretty imagery, very pretty prose, but I 100% do not think that you will ever lose a reader
Yeah.
in those. The next, when you get into
This section is a little bit,
geometry and there's so much in there.
it,
There's just like,
it also just feels excessive. Like the
right,
dude's just hammering.
right,
It's not all that in a bag of chips.
right. And that's the
Um,
problem with a lot of people who write in this style,
yeah.
because everything needs to be, as important as everything else.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a rock wall. Like it's just a mud puddle. Like it doesn't have to be a massively dynamic way of describing a mud puddle. Sometimes it's just a mud puddle. But again, this is style, so we're not saying don't write this way. We're only talking about, I mean, you sent it to us and hopefully you've seen how we edit. And hopefully you've even read us. That would also be really nice. So you actually know how we write. But that's why this is definitely not a piece that I would normally be comfortable critiquing, because this is outside of my wheelhouse.
Again, steam cried out in place of the anvil. An audience is so rare, listless sounds seeped between the smith's words as though he were still finding the shapes of each consonant. Speak your task. The girl's fingertips found her throat. Her pulse strummed through the steel dome around her chest. Holden sent me. Holden? The smith snapped the vents of his fire closed. Holden? He lifted each wrist one at a time, glancing over his brass braces. Yes, Holden. She stepped forward. You know him? Ah, the apostate. He read from his forearm. This is not a speech tag.
No.
So this is on a purely grammatical level. That should be a full stop, and he read from his forearm should be a action. Yeah. The apostate. He read from his forearm. You are his messenger, his ward, his student. Impatient that hair Feyerden of yours. The smith loomed over her as much as his anvil. A week of work remains. I'm here for you, not the. Yeah, I think like this actually is getting smoother, like
Yes.
in terms of imagery. So I
Love
think,
this. Love this author's ability to craft dialogue. I mean, we haven't gotten too deep.
yeah,
I don't know anything about the girl, and
yeah,
she's just like, Holden, 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 student. Like, so we don't. But man, the robot, I'm really, really digging. So I love it when an author using just dialogue can start showing me the character of the character.
mm,
And so, I'm getting a lot of a sense of how this thing, everything from when he's like vision or visitor, like, I don't
mm,
even know if you're real or not.
yeah,
And then, we get in this like, okay, well, you seem real, so I'm just going to go with that. Like all of this does great job of building the character of this
yeah.
blacksmith, this robot. So I'm digging all of that. And if they hold this and all this, but here's the thing that now I'm on deeper down. I'm 2 or 3 pages into this, and guess what I've completely forgotten about? I
The
was in
raindrop in the wound.
I was in a really cool raindrop.
Yeah.
Like, it's gone.
Yeah.
There's no payoff for it. So it's pretty, but where's the payoff?
Yeah. And I think, like, overall, and I mean, clearly here, the author's not writing as esoterically.
Right.
So the whole novel isn't supposed to be esoteric. So given that, there really is no need for this paragraph, right? There's perfect clarity over here. The smith snapped the vents of his fire closed. So you don't need this excessive over here. I'm just saying.
Basically, the advice would be this. If this is the style that you want, if you're a writer, so there's 2 types of writers. There's writers who write for themselves, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's writers who understand that our job is to entertain others. So we're writing for others. So if you are writing for yourself, if you're writing to make yourself happy, then by God, do it. Like, there is nothing wrong with it if this makes you happy, but you understand there are no advantages. There's only trade-offs. And so the trade-off of you writing for yourself in this very pretty prose where everything is this over-the-top kind of way of describing something, that's going to make you happy. The trade-off is it's going to make less other people happy, which means you're going to get less sales. I mean, it's just factual. But there's nothing wrong with that. Again, not everyone has the same goals, the same motivations, the same drives, in writing. So this is not a negative thing. There's nothing there. The advice, if you're coming to us and saying, all right, what do I need to do with this? The advice I think both of us are saying is keep your pretty prose, just balance it. Balance it to where your reader always knows what they're supposed to be seeing, knows where they're at, knows who their head's in. And then, like, I already pointed out those couple of lines in that first part of that dialogue that are just beautifully written, and also have beautiful imagery, and also have beautiful grounding imagery that I completely understand what's going on. Now, there are other things, like the line after that was her fingers found her throat.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from stuff like that because of the fact that I don't want to personify her fingers. I want her actually doing things. I want her being active in the story. And again, when you say stuff like her fingers found her throat, that's more omniscient, as opposed to, she fingered her throat.
She
Or
clutched at her throat.
Clutched at her throat, whatever. It's more active. It's more in the moment. It's more limited. But again, that's just the difference between writing omniscient versus limited. So that's not you need to do this or do that. It's, if you're going to write in a more omniscient way, then this is the way you're doing it. If you want to, step over into the much more limited way that tends to be what more readers today are looking for in their novels, just because that's where we're at as a society, that's what they're looking for, then, you're looking at avoiding stuff like that, because it does tend to feel more omniscient to a reader. So beautifully written. Couple typos, like there was a comma up there. You obviously pointed out the he read his forearm. That's not a speech tag. So to kind of, you want to explain that, or do you want me to? Like, what we're looking for?
What, the speech tag?
Yeah.
Yeah. So speech tag is directly identifying who said the thing. Maybe a little bit about how they said it. But
how they said it.
How they said it.
Who said it, and how they said it.
Yeah. But it is like, so it's he said, he shouted, he whispered, he thundered, maybe he orated, he he expounded. Those are all potential speech tags.
Right. Not that they're
He read from his forearm is very much an action that he is doing.
Right.
It's not a speech tag. It doesn't tell me anything about how he said it. So what you want to do is you want to use your paragraph structure and the actions the person takes to identify the speaker. and you want to avoid your speech tags
Yes.
if you can.
Might eat an M&M.
I think I ate the whole pie this time.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so I mean, I think our major advice to this author would be to consider trimming down a little bit and making those pretty prose lines a little clearer. And consider and I mean, you've got a strength here with your dialogue. You've got a strength with your prose. Your prose is beautiful. But if you can maybe make it a little clearer, I think you would go a long way with this.
Hmm.
I mean, so like I read Perdito Street, Station at China Mabel. I got through it, but I got through it with effort. And I've never read anything else of his. You know, I am not saying that and China Miéville is a published author with awards, with he's sold a lot of books, and his prose is very heavy to get through. For me, it's very heavy. So there is an audience for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that got me through China Miéville's prose, or Melville, or however you say his surname, is I could still find a certain amount of clarity in what's going on. I never had the point where I was sitting with a line, one or two of these lines where I gone, I don't understand this line. I don't understand what it's trying to communicate at all.
Yeah, like I said, there's no advantages. Me writing no pretty prose isn't an advantage over somebody who's writing only pretty prose. There's only trade-offs. So, what do I get? I get an immediacy. I get a visceralness. I get an immersion factor that is unparalleled. When you read me, you never, ever see the words you're reading, ever. You are just in the moment, the time, the event, the everything. What is my trade-off? Well, I don't have a unique author voice because it's all just visceralness. I don't have pretty prose. I don't have the things that award, the hoity-toity award ceremony people are going to be like, oh, Drake is a great writer because of this stuff. I'm never going to get that. And that's my trade-off, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
When you go all pretty prose, now you're losing. I mean, what I get are fans. I get readers. I don't get academics. I don't get people who give awards. It was always harder for me. Now I've walked away from the industry, but that was one of the things that I always struggle with in the industry, is because even acquisition editors are looking for pretty prose. So I got rejected more. Well, I never really got rejected, I never resisted it, but that was the thing. When they would read me, that would be their feedback on me, was they would be like, I want to see more of a voice, an author voice in your writing.
Yeah.
My fans never say that stuff. They're, oh my God, I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm living the moment. I feel like, I like one of my favorite reviews. I just ordered a banner stand, and it was an older one, and I forgot about this review, but it's a fan review, and it says, when I'm reading Drake, I have to occasionally look up and blink to remind myself that I'm in the real world. Like, those are the reviews that I want. And so I trade off that. If you go too heavy on the pretty prose, you're going to lose the average reader. Yeah. You're going to lose the people, the mass market. Again, I want to be a mass market writer. I want to have as many people buying my book as I can possibly get buying my book. So I cast the widest net. It just depends on what you're trying to do. There's no right or wrong way. So we're not saying that. Beautifully written. And I'll tell you the same thing that reviewer told me. I think you can do both. You kind of proved it in there. Yeah. I think you can write pretty and also keep your reader grounded in what's going on.
And not lose the reader. Yeah. So I think look at those sentences where we said we got lost, and think about how you can make those a little clearer and bring the readers who want to more see.
And I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So this may be difficult. But the reality is sometimes a mud puddle is just a mud puddle. Like, you don't have to have every single line be this extravagant work of art. You just don't. You don't. It's like, so I this month I'm doing my show don't tell class. If you wrote every single line of your book being showy, it's going to turn people. It's too much. It's like, we need balance. And so it's the same thing with this. Like, if every single line is this smorgasbord of, poetic imagery, that's not a novel. I mean, why do you think poems are 1 page long? Because that's what a lot of people can stomach. When you get into long form fiction, when you have that much imagery constantly berating them, it's going to wear on them, and it's going to lose its effect. It's sort of like what we talk about all the time, where we talk about using repetitive words or using fragmented sentences or using one-word sentences. They are very, very powerful if you don't overuse
Used sparingly.
Right.
Used sparingly, they're very, very powerful. Used overdone, it feels like too much.
Right. They just lose their power.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's what we have here. So again, this is a style choice, though. So we can't say, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is the style you want to do, then everything we just said over the last 30 or 45 minutes or so is worthless to you, because you're going to be like, nope, don't care. Don't. But at that point, I'm just like, why did you even send it in?
Like, then if that is absolutely the style you want to write it in, if you are looking to write China Melville style, find a writing group that caters to that style, because you need a very specific kind of critique, and you're going to, we struggle. We struggle to be the right people to critique that.
Well, no, I mean, there's a comma in one of those sentences that need to go, and you messed up a speech.
Yeah, but that's not useful. Like, that's not,
it fixes the thing.
Yeah.
But from a story standpoint, if you're going to do something like that, drop at the beginning, it needs to tie in somehow.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't read the whole thing, so maybe the author's like, but it does. You just didn't get there. Okay, great. If it does get there eventually, it's, that's a lot of time for a callback for only 1 paragraph. But it really depends on, it's the same thing with using she instead of Jane. If it has a payoff that warrants the time difference, then great. But, it all comes down to payoffs. And that's what readers want. They're looking for that payoff. If you're going to annoy me with this.
It would have been amazing if she swallowed the raindrop and then we became the girl.
Depends on what they're doing, but yeah.
That would have been so cool. Would have been,
or if we'd stayed the raindrop, but we just took control of the girl. And we don't know her name because we're a parasite inside of controlling her brain.
Well, that is certainly a payoff for not knowing her name as well.
And then she gets.
But I was just thinking in terms of like a transition. If if the girl swallows the raindrop and it breaks apart on her tongue, and then suddenly you're the girl, it makes for a very interesting
imagery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so it definitely is the wrong type of thing for us to critique on a line by line basis, which is unfortunately when you're in a writer's group, that's kind of what you're doing. But that would be our advice. It's just, same advice that was given to me. I think you could do both. I think you could write pretty and ground your reader.
And I hope that you found value in this. It is not our normal style of critique, but I hope that you find value in this. And I think that is a good note to end this episode, and we will see you soon for another one.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Marie Mullaney, your co-host on this literary adventure. Our goal is to provide you with valuable insights and discussions on writing. If you believe in our mission, please like and subscribe our podcast. Sharing our episodes with your community not only helps us grow, but also contributes to a richer, more diverse conversation about storytelling. We appreciate your support. For a deeper understanding of the topics we've discussed, head over to Just in Time Worlds on YouTube. It is a treasure trove where fantasy meets history and science.
Every Tuesday, you'll find new videos that delve into the intricacies of world building, drawing from our rich real-world history. Whether you're a writer, a role player, or just a fantasy enthusiast, Just-in-Time Worlds offers unique insights that will enrich your perspective. Check it out and join the journey of crafting incredible worlds.
If you are ready to take your writing to the next level and work with a group of highly motivated, dedicated writers who are all working to not only improve their writing, but improve your writing, plus you get to work with me on a weekly basis, then I'll encourage you to check out writersroom.us. This is a website that I have created that I really wish I had 30 years ago. It's everything a writer needs to become a better writer. Not only do we do weekly critique sessions, both from other members as well as me, we have daily writing sessions, I do monthly classes, Q&As, we have activities, I do all sorts of learning exercises, such as I do a quarterly writing prompt contest, and just tons and tons and tons of things. So if you're ready to get serious about your writing and you want to actually finish that novel and have a chance of it being published, then I encourage you to head on over to the Writer's Room and join me there. And as a special promotion for listeners of Releasing Your Inner Dragon, I'll go one step more. If you would like to get 50% off for 3 months, reach out to me. There's a million ways you can do that. You can do it through starvingwriterstudio.com, drakeu.com, any of my social medias such as LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever. Reach out to me, say that you would like to check out the Writer's Room for 50% off, and I will send you a link that will allow you to do just that. So hopefully you're ready to start getting serious about writing, and I'll see you in the Writer's Room.